Greetings, everyone. I am going to start a PowerPoint on some more of pictures and experiences that I've been having here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So bear with me. I have tried to do this without showing me setting it all up, and it's been a shit show. So if you will bear with me, I will start this video and we'll cross our fingers that it goes well. Kia ora, everyone. Greetings from Aotearoa, New Zealand. I am Chris, and this is a video check-in on my cross-cultural immersion. I am currently staying at the St. John's, I'm sorry, no, I'm not, College of St. John the Evangelist, or St. John's College in Auckland. And while I'm here this week, I'm going to be able to pull together some videos from this past week. So I went on a whole pilgrimage in week one. The video that you may have watched previously that was about 5 minutes or so, that was really from day one. So I arrived in New Zealand on Friday, May 12th, and my host, Cynthia Murphy, took me around that day. Like, that was not just a day I landed and then went somewhere and went to bed. We went and did things. And that's the video that you got to see of me in the Mangere Town Center and the mall. And I can't remember what else was on that video, but I think it was actually some, possibly some from the marae. And if there was, there's going to be more of that in this video that's maybe going to be just a little bit more clear-headed. So I wanted to take you through a little bit more. There's been a lot that I've already covered in the week and change that I've been here. So this video is really only going to cover that first weekend, that Mother's Day weekend. There's just been so much to do in 1 week that I really can't. If I put it all in one video, you'd be sitting here for an hour. I did want to say that part of the reason I'm doing these videos is to keep, a lot of folks have taken the time to donate to my cause, and I really appreciate that. And your donations are very welcome. And for those who can continue to donate, I appreciate that as well. So I wanted you all who have already invested in this trip to get to see what I'm actually doing. But also, I will be giving a presentation when I return to the States, both at my seminary, probably an hour and a half time frame, and then I'll be doing a 4-part series at Church of the Nativity in Huntsville, Alabama. Each of those 4 sessions is about 45 minutes, so that's a much longer meeting. That having been said, there's a lot. I mean, I have 600-700 photos already, and I'm not going to be able to show them all to you. And so some things are going to be just too much in the weeds for the final presentation, but I can show some of that to you now. And while there'll probably be some overlap, there'll be some things I show again when I give the final presentations. This just gives you a better glimpse into what I'm doing, where I'm going, who I'm with. So forgive me in advance if there's overlap in this video from the last one. There may be a few things that are I'm a little more clear-headed, so this one should be a little bit better. So without further ado, let us move on.
So there's been a lot of question about where I actually am. Am I in Aotearoa? Am I in New Zealand? What's the difference? And as my audience is largely American, I will say that most Americans think that the land that I am currently staying in is known as New Zealand. And some might have heard the term Aotearoa and just think that that's kind of the Maori word for New Zealand. And that's not true at all, but it really isn't. And so I found this video. It is from, it was shown to me. I shouldn't say I found it. It was shown to me by my host, Cynthia. And the name of, it's a series. It's called Land of the Long White Cloud is the series. You can find it on YouTube, and I encourage you to do so. And we're going to just look at a brief clip from episode 7, Cook Thinks Again. Now, this was originally put out on the air in November of 2019, and it was produced by Mint Sweet and made with the support of NZ On Air. I just wanted to give credit to everyone. There are 2 people actually in this video, Jo Randerson, she is not going to be shown in the clip that I'm going to play, and Tom Clark, who is actually playing Captain Cook. And these two theater makers have reanimated what Captain Cook's life would be like in modern Aotearoa. And here he can finally reflect on the painful effects of his colonial actions. So I'm going to play this clip so that we can kind of get to the bottom of what does it mean, this Aotearoa versus New Zealand.
All of the So, who knows this man up here? This is Kupe. Now, in many stories, he's said to be the first Polynesian star navigator to arrive here in New Zealand. And when he arrived, his wife, Hine Te Aparangi, stood up in their boat and pointed out at the landmass in front of them, saying, He ao, he ao, he Aotearoa. A cloud, a long white cloud. Now, it'd be a very, 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 very long time before the first Europeans would arrive. The Dutch named the whole of this country Nova Zealandia. And then I came along and I was like, oh, God, that's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? So I translated that straight into English, and that's how we got New Zealand. Of course, we all sort of forgot there was already...
So now that we're clear that am I in Aotearoa or New Zealand, just to add a little bit more to that, there are many here who will say Aotearoa. And there are many here who will say New Zealand. And there are some who will say Aotearoa, New Zealand. And it's just important to realize that Aotearoa is land of the long white cloud and New Zealand is New Zealand. And they both refer to the same body of land. They are not, however, synonymous words. And I am going to try as hard as I can to either say Aotearoa to honor the First Nations Maori people that were here and named this land first and foremost, or to say Aotearoa New Zealand. And I will apologize in advance if I screw that up. The picture you are seeing here as we move on is St. Matthew's in the city. You're going to see another picture from there. St. Matthew's held basically a sustainability meeting, and we're going to look at some of the material. So this is the inside of St. Matthew's, and this is the beginning of the conference. And the first picture that you see there, Kotahitana mo te Ta'iao, basically breaks down. So Kotahitana is a unity or a togetherness, a solidarity. Mo is like concerning or for the benefit of, and te is they, and Ta'iao is earth. And so this is kind of a collective gathering for the benefit of the earth. And what the smaller, not the smaller picture, the picture on the right-hand side is that is my host, that is Jacinthia, and she is doing the opening karakia. And karakia is, it's a prayer, but it is often a prayer that is chanted or is a ritual chant. And I did not record that. It didn't feel appropriate to do so, but nonetheless, she is praying to open this, which is very common to do. And she's doing so in a Maori chant. I really am including these pictures just to show how many people showed up for this. So this was sponsored through the Anglican Church. However, this was very ecumenical, and there were people there of different Christian faiths as well as people of different denominations outside of the Christian faith as well. And I was just very impressed that on a Saturday morning, this program ran for started at 9:30, I want to say, and I think it ended at 2:30, so 5 hours if I'm doing my math right. And that's a lot of time to give on a Saturday, and I was very impressed at the turnout. And I especially want to give a shout out to the young ladies in the front picture to the right of the screen. These are some friends that I met. This is Millie and Grace and Deanna, and they are university students who were taking time out of their Saturday to participate in this, to
because they care about the earth, and they're involved as young people. And the conversation that I had with them that I thought was particularly interesting is what the church could be doing better with young people. We've had a lot of talk at my seminary at Sewanee about, well, we have to have a lot of flash for the young people. And there's been talk from other seminaries about we need to be moving into, church at Taco Bell, or, some sort of virtual reality church. And I'm not here to debate those points. I think that there is no truth to that. But what these young ladies emphasize, and I think we've had this conversation, is that they would just really appreciate it if the church would ask them what they want, rather than assuming that what they're looking for is something new and technological. These are young ladies who gave up 5 hours on a Saturday to come and talk about ways that they can help support and sustain the earth. There was no flash. There was a little bit of technology, if you want to count the PowerPoint presentation that they were watching, but that was about it. And they were engaged and participated the entire time, and even took time out of their Saturday to talk to an old lady like me. And I just really think that there's a lesson in that for our American Episcopal churches, that maybe before we start jumping ahead and thinking that the only way to bring more young people into the church is with flash, maybe we should find some young people and ask them what they're looking for. And we may find that what they really want are more social justice movements and more things about the environment, or just more things that would surprise us. So I just thought there was a great lesson in that, and I really appreciated Millie and Grace and Deanna for taking the time to talk to me. And if they are watching this, I hope you all are doing well in your studies. So this is my last slide that I'm going to share from the sustainability meeting. And it's 2 pictures and 2 of their slides, and they're a little hard to see, and you might have a hard time zooming out. But the one that's on the left, St. Matthew's has a biodiversity garden, basically, and what you see listed there are just all of the things they're trying to plant. And since part of my project is really looking at the effects of colonialism, specifically within the Anglican Church, but even colonialism more broadly, I think what I have learned in this, even just in these first couple of days, is how much the indigenous plant life has suffered as a result of colonizing. So trees that have been taken out, non-indigenous plants and weeds that have come in and are overtaking the ecosystem. And they're just demonstrating here the various different types of things that they can plant, and are encouraging. One of the conversations was encouraging that people find ways to plant indigenous plants and trees to help bring back those populations. And then I just loved that here was an opportunity for action slide. That's the picture that is on the right-hand side of your screen. This wasn't just a bunch of people who were getting together. I think we do this really well in the Episcopal Church. We get groups of people that are like-minded together. We talk about things that we all agree about and feel passionately about, and then we kind of pat ourselves on the back for a day well spent talking about things that are important, but not really sure what else is happening. And here was an opportunity for action. It wasn't an outright call to action. No one was commanding anyone to do anything. It was much friendlier and softer than that. But here we just see that these are some very reasonable steps that they felt they could encourage the different people in the church from their different churches or their different denominations to be able to go out and speak to in their communities. Simple, small steps that people can get involved in, rather than saying, here's this humongous problem. Here are some small things that your community can do, any one of these things or all of these things, and they had resources on hand to help. I know we do some of these things in our church. I just leave it here to say that maybe it's something we could be doing a little bit bigger and perhaps even a little bit better. So well done, and I really enjoyed that first conference. So now we're shifting, and as we left that conference, Jacinthia drove me to a marae. And I probably did speak about this very briefly in my first video, and I'd like to do it better justice now. If nothing else, I'd like to get the pronunciation better. So this is a marae, and a marae is Maori land. And it is not, I think in American culture, we'll be thinking something like reservation land. And on the one hand, it's not entirely a misnomer, because it is land that is set aside and been given back to the Maori people. That is accurate, but it doesn't function in the same way that the reservations necessarily did. I do not remember if she had told me. I do not remember the name of the marae that we were visiting, but it is a gathering place. And so we're going to see some pictures about that, and I'll explain that in a little bit more detail. And there are several, and they are, generally speaking, each marae is tied to a particular iwi, which is a tribe. So they are tied to a particular community of people. So in that way, there's some similarity, but as you will see, there are also some differences. This, as you can see, the sign may appear to you to be very unfriendly. I think any First Nations people might understand that maybe it is a little unfriendly in its own way. I think enough land has been taken by European settlers that when the land was given back to the Maori and they set up these marae, it is a very special and spiritual place for them. Important things happen here, like funerals and end-of-life celebrations. It isn't meant for just your average person, white or otherwise, to just wander in and mill about and do whatever they please. It is very special land for them, and so they mark it as such. And so I hope when you see this, you take that for the seriousness of it, but not in an offensive way. I did not take offense. I think that people have a right to mark their private and special place and to honor that. And so that is what's here. So we're going to look at some more pictures here in just a minute. As we were driving to the marae, we were driving past this bit of river, and in Maori this is referred to as Aotearoa, which means the long river. And this was a very busy place for the Maori back in the day. And they would fish here, and they would gather here, and they would be together with one another here, but they didn't necessarily build here. And when the European settlers came, their mindset was if it was valuable, you should be building on it. And since you aren't building on it, then you don't actually have it. And so they kicked them all off. And so this is one of the areas that the Maori were driven away from. And this is not a part of the marae. This has not been given back. This was on the road to it. And this is now no longer open for public fishing, and it's just prior to what you see in this picture was a whole fleet of sailboats that we drove by. And sailboats are lovely, and I don't mean to disparage people who have them. I don't, and more power to you if you do. But I think it is a fair assumption that very few Maori own those sailboats that we had driven past that you don't see in this picture. And so it's just another example where this has been created as a nice place in the eyes of colonizers and a place of sadness for many of the Maori. So here you will see a part of the marae that Jacinthia and I were not allowed to go into because this is not her marae, and I am clearly an outsider, and so we were not able to just wander in to see. But I did want to show you the outside of the buildings. Generally, from what I have seen in other marae, there's probably some religious and I shouldn't say religious, some tribal symbolism in there for them, and history of their people. And again, they would have ritual activities here, like again, funeral proceedings and things of that nature. But it's a gathering place. They could have any number of things here. I imagine important meetings they could have here. What this vessel you see in front, or this waka, is their canoe that they would have used for travel and for fishing. And so these were just a few pictures that I wanted to show you of that. So this was a part of the marae that we were able to walk and look at. And these are some of the grounds, and they are beautiful. And I was basically kind of standing in just one place as I moved by, and the larger picture on your screen shows an island out in the distance, and that island, that mountain, if you will, is called Rangitoto. And it is lovely, and it baffled, because when the land was given back to the Maori, the European settlers wanted to try to tell them what to do with it and wanted them to build on it. And they saw this as, if you will, prime real estate. And the Maori said, no, this is our land and we're going to preserve it. And it caused me to reflect on what precious thinking that is, because I know personally I used to live in an area in Maryland, and the neighborhood itself was called Arundel Forest. And slowly but surely, the builders got greedy and took out more and more green space. And there is almost no green space in Arundel Forest. You can find the irony in that. And here you have what colonizing persons might look at and say is prime real estate. Again, it's waterfront property, and you could build $1 million homes here, and or multi-million-dollar homes here, and wouldn't that be lovely? And the Maori said, no, we are going to preserve the earth. We're going to preserve creation. We're going to preserve this in an undisturbed format, and politely or otherwise said, we don't need you to tell us what to do with our land. And I think that's pretty amazing that they didn't give in to any kind of pressure or opportunity for a quick buck at a longer term expense. And I think there's a lot to be learned in that. And it was just really beautiful land, and I appreciated being able to be there. When we got to the marae, Cynthia pointed out this sign, this be careful, slow down sign. Kia tupato me ate haere, and told me that the figure in that picture was her grandmother. And I'm not gonna lie, there was a part of me that was like, get out of here, right? I mean, it appears to be stock photo to me, and I just was dumbfounded at the notion that this was an actual person and not just imagery. And so at one point, perhaps more arrogantly than I intended to, I asked, how do you know that's your grandmother? I mean, there's no face, there is nothing. And she told me about her grandmother, Dame Dame Finna Cooper. And we're going to talk more about Finna in later videos, so I don't want to get into too much here, but the short that I will tell you here is that Finna is known for many things, but is probably best known, at least outside of Aotearoa, for leading the famous 1975 land march that she walked from Te Hapua in the far north to Parliament in Wellington. And here is an actual picture of her from that march. And here is a picture of her also on that day, but not the picture that was reclaimed into the signs that you saw. So I have since had an opportunity to visit her gravesite and to hear more of her story, and we will talk about her more in later videos. But I did just want to give a shout out to my first introduction to Finna, and she is very, very beloved, and this is definitely intended to be Jacynthia's grandmother. This is definitely intended to be Finna from that day of that march, and I just thought that was really beautiful imagery and just a further demonstration of how important saving the land really is to the Maori. When we got So this final picture here, I'm not going to continue to try to fight with the recordings that I did previously. I would have shown in my last video as well. And I just wanted to end with this image for this video. If you remember when we started our pictures of the marae, I showed you the sign that said, like, stay out and private road. I am now standing with my back directly to that sign facing out. And you saw the beautiful land of the marae, and if you turn and look here, this is also beautiful land, but this is not part of the marae. This stands as a representation in my photos of all of the land that wasn't given back. And as I'm working through this and I am learning more about colonialism, and I am preparing in my mind what I'm going to say when I come back to my own country, I know that there are issues in our own country with our First Nations, and I know that colonialism has been an ongoing problem that many, European descendants would like to think was no longer a thing. And there's a lot of healing left to be done. And that is true in New Zealand as much as it is in any other nation that has been developed through colonization. New Zealand has made some really wonderful strides, and there's probably a lot that the US could learn from New Zealand. And there is still work left to do, and they're pretty open in acknowledging that on the whole. But I just put this out here to just remind us that when we look at land and we just notice its beauty, it's okay to notice its beauty, but it's important to remember the painful history and to know and to honor the reality of land that was taken from people or swindled from people, stolen from people, and that isn't given back or paid for or remunerated in any way. And it's just important to kind of hold that in mind, that it isn't always just there for us to do with as we please. And maybe it never should have been. So at any rate, that is my presentation for this video. There'll be more videos coming this week. I've a lot that I'm trying to catch up on from last week. So keep watching, and thank you so much for taking time to watch these videos and enjoy this beautiful country that I'm getting to visit and seeing their beautiful scenery and learning more about their history. Thank you for praying and supporting me. Thank you for your donations. There's a link in the description if you want to keep donating. I appreciate that. And I look forward to visiting with you in future videos. So be well all, and I will talk to you soon.